Well, with Thanksgiving right around the corner and Christmas right around the corner after that, it's a time for families and friends to get together and reminisce and talk about the issues and have a good time. But also, there's the opportunity for strife and drama. And this heightened political craziness age, we need a little bit more civility, more than we usually do. So we asked our good friend Alexandra Hudson, the author of The Soul of Civility, which you can find on Amazon and all over the place. So, Alexandra, my dear, how you got? How you doing? How's the husband and new kids treating you?
Everyone's great. I am at Washington Park in Indianapolis launching model rockets with the kids right now. So we're having a grand old time and looking forward to the holiday season as well, Abdul.
Oh, so it's rockets like the Big Bang Theory. Sweet, I can respect that.
Something like that.
So let's go ahead and get started here. When we get together with our family and friends, and like I said, we reminisce and sometimes have some spirited discussions, which is fine. But when does spirited discussions go a little bit too far, do you think?
It's true. It feels like politics is everywhere in a way it hasn't been in the past. And it's in our schools, it's in our neighborhoods. Of course, it's in our pockets and ubiquitous in like our psyche consciousness, the stuff we consume, but it's also at our family dinner tables. And I don't know about you, but I know people who are dreading Thanksgiving and Christmas, both of which are right around the corner, because they are going to have to sit down and be pleasant, with crazy Aunt Agnes, who can't stop talking about her pet issue, and people are wondering what to do. And so I have a few tips in my book, The Soul of Civility, exploring what we can do in preparation for these possibly uncomfortable conversations we're going to have with family members. I mean, you can, first of all, is to remember the difference between civility and politeness. So politeness is manners, etiquette, technique. It's what we do. It's what we say. Whereas civility is an inner disposition of the heart. It's a way of seeing others as our moral equals, worthy of a bare minimum of respect, just by virtue of our shared dignity, our shared equal moral worth as human beings. And that sometimes loving someone, respecting someone, including a family member, requires telling a hard truth, engaging in robust debate. That is certainly what we need more of today in general, because we're often too content with tone policing and with niceness and sweeping difference under the rug. And so there is a time and a place for civility, for having those robust conversations. I will be honest with you, I am not sure that the Thanksgiving dinner table is one of them.
Exactly. There's a time for, as my mother would say, son, there's a time and place for everything, but this is not the time. This is definitely not the place.
Correct.
Our guest on the program today is our good friend Alexandra Hudson. She's the author of Soul of Civility. So we figure, hey, with Thanksgiving and Christmas right around the corner, and people getting together, probably haven't seen each other in a while, and people still maybe holding grudges from last year's events. It's like, it's probably a good idea to just sort of refresh and people talk about civility versus politeness, because Alexandra, I can just see that situation right now where after the 2024 election, some people who were for Donald Trump maybe kind of gloating a little bit. Some people for Kamala Harris, a little bit upset. Like, Uncle blah, blah, blah said this last year. I'm going to get him back with this year.
Exactly. Here's a mental technique I explore in my book, The Soul of Civility, that can be helpful in as you sit down with crazy Uncle Bill at the dinner table this coming up the holiday weekend. So I have this idea called unbundling people in my book. Unbundling people is basically seeing the part of someone in light of the whole. So seeing the thing that you don't like about them, the thing they've said, the thing they've done, the opinion they hold that you vehemently disagree with, seeing that in light of their personhood, of course, the irreducible dignity and worth they hold as a human being just like us, but also in light of the context of the relationship, remembering that they came to Grandparent Day, remembering all the conversations that you've had over the years, remembering the context of the friendship, of the relationship. Because to me, Abdul, a hidden tragedy of our divided moment is the tragic number of lifelong friendships and family relationships that have been strained, severed, ended over political disagreement. That to me is a symptom of misplaced meaning. We are placing too much of our identity, of our stake in politics, and we're letting it take precedent over beautiful things like friendship and family relationship. And so unbundling people, seeing the part of them that we disagree with or don't like in light of the whole, that is an essential kind of mental framework to dealing with with maybe uncomfortable conversations and people that we have differed from politically with grace this holiday season.
And also remind people too that you may think that Uncle Ben is crazy or Aunt May is nuts, but they can also think this may be the same thing about you.
Exactly. You know, Churchill has this great line. Winston Churchill once said, "A fanatic is someone who won't change their mind and can't change the subject." And I think we live in a world of fanatics these days where there are just people everywhere who just like want to talk about their pet hobby horse, their issue, and you can't deter them. And like, what do you do if you're trapped next to that person at a Friendsgiving or a Thanksgiving this week, or with Christmas and the holidays, dinner parties right around the corner? You know, one thing you can do is, I mentioned unbundling people. You can also have a curious disposition. You know, you can actually you can ask them questions. You can recognize that people come to different views about the world for many different reasons, and it's really easy to say, I know this one thing about you, therefore I know everything I need to know about you. But what is a little humility and curiosity? What can that ask of us? And having us engage with others with that mindset of, no one of us has all the answers, and that every single person has something that they can teach us.
And also too, I think it's interesting because this was a few years ago when my dad was still alive. He was a big Donald Trump fan. My niece was a big Bernie Sanders fan. And they were arguing with each other. It's like, you guys realize you're arguing over the same thing. They looked at me like I was crazy, like, Abdul, what do you mean? I was like, well, Dad, you think Donald Trump is going to bring these jobs back and put all these young brothers to work on the south side of Chicago? My niece, you think the system is rigged and you can't get a fair shake. There really isn't that much daylight between the two of you if you just take a second just to look at things from the other person's perspective.
It's true. With the holidays around the corner, I think it's a good time to also reflect on the lost art of hosting and hospitality. We live in a crisis, yes, of polarization, but also relatedly of loneliness. You know, we have the scholars and public politicians where they're concerned about what they call the deaths of despair. And I think it's a great opportunity to reflect on what is the role we each have to be a part of this solution in reclaiming our civic power and reaching out and inviting people into our lives, into our home. Hospitality isn't just, of course it's practical. We all know we can invite people over for dinner. We can porch with them. Happy to talk about the porching revolution and porching in Indianapolis. But also it can be intellectual. You can be intellectually hospitable and entertaining other people's ideas and views of the world as well. So reclaiming this lost art of hospitality, showing kindness to the stranger practically, yes. I think we've lost practice. We're out of practice. I think the pandemic, but even beyond, where we're just out of practice entertaining and having people into our home. But just to exercise that muscle, make that bid. People are way more likely to accept our bids of hospitality and affection and friendship than we realize. Social science has confirmed that. So making that extra effort to welcome people into our home, into our lives, to make this thing called life together more palatable. You heard my son in the background there.
Hey, that means he agrees with you. There you go.
Exactly. That's his huzzah, his here.
Our guest in the program today is our good friend Alexandra Hudson. She is the author of Soul of Civility, a book on how we need to be civil to each other. Doesn't mean we can't disagree or maybe have maybe spirited discussions. But there's no point in being a total butthole about this whole thing. And Alexandra, I want to get your thoughts on this because my theory is I don't blame social media, whether it's Facebook, X, or LinkedIn, or whatever website people are on these days, as being the cause of this, but it doesn't necessarily help matters much either.
It's so true. It's naive to say that social media caused our civility crisis. I mean, this thing called life together, we've been trying to do it for a long time. And as long as we've been around as a species, it's been a challenge. Life with others has never been easy. It's never been a foregone conclusion. But of course, while there's nothing new under the sun, as Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And so there are new challenges to this challenge, this question of life together. And social media and our broader toxic media culture is invariably one of them. One idea I talk about in my book, The Soul of Civility, is that we have to cultivate our digital garden. And what I mean by that is that we have to take control of our agency of how we use these platforms, reassert our civic power and in terms of how we use social media, because we do have way more power to be a part of the solution than we realize. For example, I have a newsletter and publication. I think you're a subscriber, Abdul. It's called Civic Renaissance.
Yes.
And it's a community of 50,000 subscribers from across the globe dedicated to beauty, goodness, and truth, and social healing and reclaiming their agency. 50,000 people, that is a drop in the bucket when it comes to the billions of social media users and people on the internet. But you know what? It's my garden, and I cultivate it, and I nurture it, and I give people content about intellectual history and stories that help us live our lives richer and better by reviving the wisdom of the past. And that is my garden. That's all I can control. So I hope people listening to this feel encouraged. You can't control what Donald Trump says. You can't control what Elon Musk does with the algorithm on the platform formerly known as Twitter. But you can control yourself, and you can control, you have some great insights about good, healthy media savvy and practices, Abdul, about, reading things and not just sharing them unthinkingly rather, just glancing at the headline and either commenting or thinking everything based on the headline, and just being thoughtful and deliberative and sowing seeds of beauty, light, and goodness and truth on the internet. I know that sounds crazy and naive, but it's possible. And, use the block button liberally. You don't have to, no one is entitled to your time and to your attention if they're being vicious and hateful online. If it is someone that you care enough about, like it's someone you actually know in person or will see, then feel free to message them and say, hey, that comment or that post, that felt a little off. Like, let's take this offline and have a face-to-face conversation. There is a time and a place for that approach as well. So block liberally, cultivate your digital garden, and take conversations offline so that you can have them face-to-face and bring the humanity back to our interactions, which is what the digital platform misses.
And it's funny you bring that up, because I told myself one day I was going to write a book about Facebook and Twitter and say, well, that escalated rather quickly.
Exactly. It's so true.
Because I'm amazed at how one comment or just one sort of random thought can sort of devolve into this almost sort of Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, welcome to the Terradome type atmosphere. On social media, like, guys are just making an observation. And perfect example, one day I wrote, the sky is blue, and a fight broke out.
Right. I love this. I love this anecdote I heard once where it's like, if you ever want someone else to do your research for you, put out something on social media that is certainly wrong, and then you'll have 11,000 people telling you why you're wrong and what the correct answer is. And it's like, great, harness that energy and make the most of it. It's true, things feel really bleak, Abdul, but I'll tell you, I have so much more hope than even I did just a few months ago. When my book came out 2 years ago, I started having these leaders reach out to me and say, I loved your book. What now? How do I embody it in my community? And, Carmel, Indiana was one of these communities that said, how do we embody your book? And they hosted over 100 mayors, city council persons, civic leaders from across North America and 17 states for the first Civility Summit in Carmel. And it was such a hope-filled endeavor. They were all gathered around my book and the ideas of my book, that civility is not politeness, that agreement is not even the goal. In fact, disagreement is a feature of democracy, not a bug. We're never going to perfectly agree, but how do we rehumanize one another in light of and in spite of that disagreement? And now all of those leaders that were in Carmel are now going back to their communities and building their own institutions around my book. And it's so exciting. We're working with state legislatures. We're working with schools and the curriculum and the children's version of my book. In workplaces, it's exciting. People are saying resoundingly, I can't control what is happening in Washington or across the world, but I can control myself. And I'm going to double down and make my community better and more stronger. And that is why I'm so hopeful going into this holiday season and entering into 2026.
Alexa Hudson, our guest on the program this morning for a few more minutes. Lexi, it's interesting because on the one hand, I totally respect your approach, which is like, hey, let's encourage civility, let's have a discussion. It can be heated sometimes, but we still need to be civil to each other. Meanwhile, on the flip side of that, I've had to sue several people for defamation as of late because they kind of crossed the line. And so on the one hand, you can have Lexi over here ask for civility, or you can pay me a few $1 million in defamation damages. Which one do you want, people?
There is a time and a place, Abdul. I won't speak to the specifics of your
situation
because I'm not familiar with it. But I will say that civility doesn't mean passive inaction. It sometimes means speaking truth to power. It means holding people accountable. And I shared with you, Abdul, my journey experiencing this firsthand. I mean, we had a horrible situation with a mold company in Indianapolis who literally took $54,000 from us and made our mold problems 3 times worse, and then sued us for non-payment. And I mean, my husband and I had to deliberate. We had to make the same decisions that you had to make in your situation, Abdul. Like, what is peace worth? I'm like, to me, I said, it's not about the money. If they're doing this to us, bullying us, they're doing this to other people. We have to pursue this. We have to fight back. We have to countersue. Like, this is not what you do in a democracy. You don't pay thugs to just not harass you and just bribe them to go away. And my husband said, no, this is like the highest and best use of money, to make thugs go away and not harass you and pursue peace in our lives. There's too much going on. But in fact, we did pursue it. We ended up getting a judgment against them, which felt great, but it was stressful. It was hard. And in fact, I prayed about this and I thought deeply about it. I thought, is this in alignment with my ideals? And ultimately, I decided that it was, because it was me standing up to this company saying, you are incorrect. You are hurting people. And that was the respectful thing to do. I mean, reasonable minds can disagree on these kind of issues. This is where I happen to come down on this particular issue. But I decided this is where civility led me, holding people accountable, holding bad actors accountable. And so that I hope that's an encouragement to people here. I mean, this is why I did not write a book of static do's and don'ts. Civility is not a list of do this, don't do that. It is a disposition of the heart that helps us navigate the fluid and complex thing of life together with others that no rule book will sufficiently prepare us for. We have to just, case by case say, what does respect of the other look like here? And sometimes that means pursuing justice and holding bad actors accountable, which is what we did in our case.
All right. Well, our guest on the program today has been our good friend Lexi Hudson, the author of Soul to Civility, which you can find on Amazon and in bookstores everywhere. So, Lexi, my dear, thank you very much for being with us. Looking forward to our next porch conversation.
Can't wait, and give Sharon a big hugs from us.
Will do.
Talk to you soon.